Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for listening. This is Jeremiah Gunn Show. Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you more than you'll ever know. This is the Jeremiah Gunn Show. This is on CSN. This is CSN, the Common Sense Network, part of the ISI broadcasting system, broadcasting from behind enemy lines in the civil war that has not ended yet, that will determine whether we will, as Lincoln put it, meanly lose or nobly save the last best hope of men on earth. That's it. This is it. This is a test. This is the final exam. You could say it's a midterm, but that was a civil war. We didn't really pass that test. We got a, what did they give you? Pass, fail, not an A, B, or C. Democrats are at war with the Constitution, now just as then. Anyway, this is the Dennis, I was going to mention Dennis Prager, and I will. This is CSN, the Common Sense Network. This is Jeremiah Gunn Show. I am Dr. No, K-N-O-W, the undocumented expert. And why is this show important? Why? Well, it doesn't matter if I think it's important. It is necessary. And I have not heard anything like this before. You can talk about whoever you want. Dennis Prager's been on the air forever. He's had PragerU and good stuff, all good stuff, a lot of good things. This is more holistic. This is going to give you the whole picture. And not going to talk about the Joe Rogans and, I don't know. Where do these folks get their opinions? Yeah, he was for Bernie Sanders. Don't forget that. Don't forget that before he kind of grudgingly switched. Forget about Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson. They're crazy. Nick Fuentes. I don't know. Is it the beanie? Is he that he's young? I mean, where do they get their ideas from? So I just want to say this is different. This is different. We can explain everything. You have to own the answers. You have to own the answers. Nobody else. Nobody else. Nobody else can go there for you. No, sir. You've got to go there by yourself. Yes, sir. You got to do it. It's up to you. And we're going to talk about that today. This is part 2 of Facts and FAQs, FAQs, frequently asked questions. Got a couple of them lined up here. This dedicated to Charlie Kirk, as always, prophets, not people. Prophets, prophets, not people. We need prophets. We need to recognize them. We need to understand why the enemy, the left, the Democrat Party, the communists, the machine, which is the government, education, media attainment complex, which is communist, Islamist, and Democrat, socialist. All the same, all one word, one big tent. Anyway, this is different. We're going to talk about every side of the issue. Victor Davis Hanson is awesome. Ben Shapiro's good. Coleman Hughes is outstanding. We talk about that. We talk about them and explain. I can explain to you where they're right, where they're wrong. You're not going to hear Victor Davis Hanson touch on every single thing. He's a great expert in a couple of areas. Same with Ben Shapiro. Same with these other folks. And I'll give you recommendations as we go along, but let's just get together. Come, let's reason together and let's talk. God bless Charlie Kirk. I want to make a correction. I blew something the other day. This happens. It's so weird. There's a sentence or a description or an anecdote or something. And there's 2 words that are critical with their placement, and it'll get crossed. I don't understand it, but that's what happened. I was talking about Chariots of Fire, which was a great movie. I think it was made in the 80s and late 1900s, and it was about a guy named Eric Liddell, who was a gold medal caliber greatest runner in the world, and he would not run on the Sabbath because the trials that you have to do in the Paris Olympics 100 years ago, this last Paris Olympics was their centennial from the 1924 Olympics. Anyway, he would not do it, just as I mentioned, as Sandy Koufax, maybe the greatest ever, would not pitch even in the World Series, because it fell on Yom Kippur. And, these are statements that young men have to make. They got to make a decision. There's a fork in the road. They've got to go. They've got to go there by themselves and make a decision. It's lonely. It's lonely at the top. It's lonely being the point man. That's what they called him in Vietnam, the point man. The guy who was in front of the squad had to go first. First one out of the trench in World War I. If you're going to have the courage of your convictions, you got to have courage. You got to have courage. So what happened was they got him in one of the rooms of the ship that this liner they were taking across the channel to go to Paris, to go to the Olympics. And they lined up the king, the prime minister, and the another guy. I don't remember. Maybe it was the coach. It was probably the head of the Olympic committee. So these three guys are going to, like a court martial, they're going to pressure this guy. And they're going to make him explain why he won't run for his king. And his king and country, king and country. We talked about the other day of how important it is. God, country, and family. It has to be in that order. You can't do things for your country that violate things that God wants you to do. None of the founders would have wanted that. And it's their country. It's not ours. It's theirs. We owe them a gratitude. We owe them a debt to just listen to what they said. So anyway, they got him and they're putting pressure on him. This poor young man, all he wants to do is get a gold medal, but his faith won't allow him to. He thinks he thought he'd be disappointing God by doing something on the Sabbath. Turns out not so, but anyway. So they line up the king, the prime minister, and the head of the Olympic committee. Think about that pressure for this guy, and they're telling him. And he says, I can't even for a qualifying heat, I can't run on the Sabbath. And the prime minister gets really pissed off. He's an old guy. And he says, in my day, it was king first and then country. I got to make sure I get that right, because that's how I blew it the other day. In my day, it was king first and then country. And the king is sitting there. It's just been referenced. He's sitting there. He's got his legs crossed. The typical erudite, elegant man of that 1920s. Just quintessential king. He just says he's got a cigarette and he's just sitting there calmly taking it in. And he says, yes. And the war to end all wars just proved that point bitterly. That's what they called World War I. They called it the war to end all wars. And really what it did is kind of mess up the world for good. That'll be on other shows. But yes, that's right. And the war to end all wars just proved that point bitterly. What a brilliant line. And I'm sorry I screwed it up, because it's really worthwhile. If you want to see a great movie, watch that movie. I read the book about Eric Liddell's life. He wound up as a missionary to China. And actually had a wife and some little girls. He was a great man, great man. He died in a Japanese prison camp in China. So I want to kind of recap. What I'm going to talk about today is we're going to talk about courage. I'm going to talk about courage, and the one really good member of SCOTUS. There have been a few. Unfortunately, just too few. But he said, those men who gained our liberty, the ones who gave us our liberty, this precious, precious heritage that we're squandering, we're just crapping on it. We're peeing on it. We're throwing it away. That's not nice. Anyway, he said, the ones who gave us our liberty, the ones who risk our lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor to give us this incredible gift, the greatest civilization in the history of the world. Anyway, he said the men who gave us our liberty believed liberty to be the source of happiness, and they believed courage to be the source of liberty. The men who gave us our liberty believed liberty to be the source of happiness, and courage to be the source of liberty. Courage, that's what it's all about. I'd like to kind of strike a balance between being goofy and fun and nice and all those things and telling us what we got to hear. This is a crisis. This is a terrible. Anyway, courage. That's what's missing. That's what's missing. That's what's missing. That's why our national anthem says the land of the free and the home of the brave. That's the final crescendo of that whole poem. Land of the free, the home of the... It's not the land of the she and the home of the slave. It has become that now, but we're fighting for controls. We're fighting to get it back. Courage. What makes a king out of a slave? Courage. What makes the flag on the mast to wave? Courage. What makes the elephant charge his tusk in the misty mist or the dusky dust? What makes the muskrat guard his musk? Courage. What makes the sphinx the seventh wonder? Courage. What makes the dawn come up like thunder? Courage. What makes the Hottentot so hot? What put the ape in apricot? What have they got that these guys ain't got? Courage. So I don't know if that was Virgil, Aristotle, or Thucydides. Victor Davis Hanson will be able to tell me, but I thought we might start off with that poem, a little tribute to courage. So, you know, I was at Costco the other night with my wife, and there's these people that do these product demonstrations or give you samples of food or whatever. Frequently, they're from other countries. So we're going to get some dog food or something when you pass this guy. He's sitting there. I don't know if he's selling cell phones or Tupperware. I don't know. But he wasn't doing anything. He was watching. A little tiny guy, looked like a jockey. Had a baseball hat on. He's sitting there watching the Shah, the Crown Prince, the son of the guy that was kicked out by Jimmy Carter that gave us the nightmare we've known as Iran for 48 years. Almost a half a century. The key axis of evil member, a sponsor of terrorism around the world. Nightmare regime. Anyway, he's sitting there watching the Shah. So I thought, I said, are you Persian? And those of you who don't know, Iran used to be called Persia, just like Sri Lanka used to be called Ceylon, and just like, what is Burma called? Myanmar now? I don't know, whatever. Change names. Thailand was Siam. So anyway, I said, are you Persian? And he nodded, and I started to speak a little Farsi to him. And one of the things I said to him was, I just said a couple of common greetings and things like that, Happy New Year and all that stuff. But I said to him, Marikbar Khamenei, death to Khamenei. You know, that country has spent the last 50 years yelling death to America and death to Israel. For those of you that anti-Semitics out there that want to get some more eye problem enhanced. So I said to him, Marikbar Khamenei. And he said, he's dead already. And I said, well, then his son and his predecessor and all that. And he says, you know who needs death? It's Trump. And I tell you, I wanted to knock him out of that chair with one punch, out right down the corridor, down the aisle, out of the store. I wanted to have on a shirt that said undocumented ICE agent and just drag him out. Man, was I mad. I said, you're wrong. I said, you know what? 75% of the Persians in America are in California. And there's a bunch in all other countries. You always see these rallies where they want to get their country back. I said, if you guys would all go back there, you might be able to have a real country after all we've done for you, all that Israel has done for you. Might give you a chance to have a real country, but you're not men. I said, I don't think you're men. I don't think you're man enough. And he says, you know why I came here? I saw a Playboy magazine. No, he said, do you know why I came here? And I said, I thought, because you came in 1979 when the Shah was deposed? He says, he's watching a picture of the Crown Prince, which is the son of the Shah, who's trying to go back and not be king, but set up a decent country for once, or for a change. And he says, no, I came here because I saw a Playboy magazine. I saw a Playboy and I knew I had to come here. So I told it to my wife. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Told that to my wife in the car. She couldn't believe it. I said to him, they don't have them there, and they probably never will. But what a low life. That's it. That's his idea of the founding fathers. I once found the Gettysburg Address. I've known a lot of Persians, a lot. Iranians, if you need to hear it that way. Anyway, I showed a couple of them you can find the Gettysburg Address in Farsi, and I showed it to him, and the guy almost cried. He put it up on the wall of his office. He said, "It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. It's like a poem, a sacred poem." Yep. And he got it, But he told me a story. This is why Trump called these countries S-hole countries, shite-hole. Sorry, folks. I'm sorry, children. There's a great meme that says, listen, remember, kiddies, you can vote your way into communism, but you got to shoot your way out. What did D.H. Lawrence say? He said, oh, man, he had a great quote. It was, men fight for liberty with hard knocks. Their children, and they win it with hard knocks, their children brought up easy, let it slip away. And their children, the grandchildren, poor fools, are once again slaves. So that's it. Here we are. So, I knew this Persian guy, and he told me a story, a little parable they tell about certain people in Persia, but it really sounds to me like it applies to all of them. After all we've done, I hear from a Persian expatriate that there are the 95% of them are not IRGC, which in that is for Islamic. It's not for Iran. Islamic Republic Guard Council, or whatever it's called. They're just devils. They're more into Islam than they are into Iran. But 95% of the people are not able to take it from here after all we've done. So this Persian guy at work, he told me a little parable they tell, and it's about this village. They make fun of the people in the mountains, like we would say hillbillies. But anyway, he tells this parable that I think applies to Iran, to the Persian people that I've ever known, unfortunately. And what happened was these robbers, these band of marauders, cutthroats, they come to the town and they gather all the men and they draw a circle with their sandal around all the men and say, do not set foot out of that circle. And then they go rape and pillage, destroy the town, rape the women and daughters and sisters and mothers, just like the Russians did to Germany in World War II. Anyway, they just, it's horrible. And then they leave. And the women go up to the men standing in the circle and says, how could you just stand there and watch that all happen and not lift a finger, do nothing? And the leader of this group of men said, that's not true. That's not true. Do you know while all that was going on, 3 times I put my toe across the line that they drew. 3 times I put it outside the circle. So, I've got an in-law. I've got an in-law who's Persian. You know the difference between in-laws and outlaws? It's the difference between in-laws and outlaws. Outlaws are wanted. Anyway, I was thinking this guy would be dancing in the streets of L.A. He came here in '79 with his father. The patriarch brought them all here because the Shah was deposed and Jimmy Carter created that nightmare, working with the Soviet Union and France and other leftists, and put in Islamo-Nazis that have been in cahoots with the Russians. Remember the Russians? Iran is now they're working with China and Russia. Okay, so I thought after all this stuff that he'd be super happy about it, like I thought this little pissant at Costco would be. No, he's not. He's not happy at all. He's not happy at all. I'm like, what are you guys doing here? Go back there and play the man. Be a man. Have courage. Have courage. Solomon said it's better to be a live dog than a dead lion. That's not true. He was being sarcastic. he was being kind of like trying to be depressing by mocking ideas like that. No, it's not true. So, this guy, once you guys go back there, I really thought when they're in these capitals of all these countries all around the world, they want a separation of church and state. They don't want a theocracy where they kill women because they weren't wearing their burqa right, and torture and kill and maim. This Persian guy at work he would still defend Iran, and his own brother was killed by the IRGC, tortured and killed, his own brother for doing nothing. So, you guys got to be men. You got to be men. We've done everything we can. But the people in this country that aren't men, they hate Trump. They hate Trump for that. I just saw a commercial for California governor, this little pissant wussy he's the mayor of San Jose or something. He's trying to be governor, and he goes, "We didn't start this war, Trump did, and now we're paying for it at the pump." None of that's even true. It doesn't matter if you can get the girls in the girls' club to rally around you. So I walk away from this Persian guy, and I walk over, and I see this woman. Her name looks like it might be Russian. I asked her where she's from, Russia. So I said a couple things to her in Russian. I really love people. I love culture. Remember Viktor Frankl said there's only two races, decent and indecent. So I started to make a conversation with her. Как дела, как поживаете, товарищ, мой друг, друзья? And she said, хорошо, which means thank you, or fine, I'm fine, thank you. And so I said, Божьи сохрани Америка. God bless America. And she makes this face. She shrugs her shoulders, tilts her head, does the frowny kind of purse your lips and make a shrugging face, and says, "Oh, there are good people here and there are good people there. There's good people here and there's good people." She's old enough to know. She's old enough to know better. She lived behind the Iron Curtain. I mean, are you kidding me? Lady, if you're not happy here, take that Persian guy with you and go back where you came from. We don't need you here. We don't need you here. And then I started thinking about how much of my tax dollars that they burned and printed and everything else and wasted. Fraud, waste, and abuse. That's the motto of the Democrat Party, of government. Yeah, there's rhinos who are complicit too, yeah. But you got to be an adult. You got to think about this stuff clearly and understand if every election is the evil of two lessers, then you got to vote for the lesser of two evils. Isn't that simple? I mean, one of the parties is kind of stupid and ignorant and lost. And the other one is demonic. Is that a hard call? That's what we're going to talk about today. These people, what are you doing here? That's part of our eye problem. Immigration, idiots, ignorant immigrants, cowards. This Russian woman was an awful. Was she affluent, white, female, urban, leftist? No. She was adversarial, white, female, uninformed, unknowing, leftist, loser. We don't need you here writing checks. Schwarzenegger was on The View, I think. And he's talking about when he first came here from Austria. He wanted to come here at like 19 because he saw his fellow 19-year-olds, all they thought about was the pension and the vacation they're going to get from the government someday. And he's like, God, I'm not dead yet. What? I'm not. The Marines have an expression. They say, that guy's on the ROAD program. ROAD, R-O-A-D. They love acronyms in the military. Retired on active duty. You don't need people like that. So Schwarzenegger was trying to explain to these cows on the View. He says, when I came here, I realized right away I was a guest. I was a guest in this country. And when you're a guest, you treat the people with respect and gratitude. I'm in your house. I don't get up. I don't get up in the morning. This is the greatest country in the world, and I'm here. I should work hard. I don't get up and tell them I want to have breakfast at this time. I want you to pay for my this and that. I'm a guest. I should act with respect and go by their rules. That's what I should do. I should have gratitude and humility. I realize this. That's the kind of immigrants we need. Emma Lazarus, who wrote the poem at the base of the Statue of Liberty, she wasn't one of the founding fathers. I mean, that was about the turn of the century. That was past our halfway point when she wrote that poem, and they put it there. But at the dedication, they made a different kind of speech. Not they said, if you want to be here and you want to be part of the country, we welcome you with open arms, but you got to want to be here and you got to want to love it or leave it. It's, I'll read it sometime if I haven't already. It's beautiful. But, we don't need you here if you don't care. If you don't care whether we recreate what you fled, we don't need you here. That's what people need to understand. People need to understand this stuff. That's why we call it CSN, the Common Sense Network. So people have to say what's true and what's common sense. So just kind of a recap. I started this particular episode, and the past one, the previous one, I had questions come in, facts, FAQs, from retired vet, great patriot, from awful, that somebody that I know and love, but they're unwitting idiot, useful idiot. They don't know. Unwitting means they don't know. They don't know. But they don't want to listen. And they don't know if they should buck their tribe. They just can't. So we'll talk about that and talk about a young man who said, I want to do the right thing. I want to hear the battle cry, but I also just want peace. I just want to float. I don't blame him. You don't need, newlywed, starting a career. You don't need to be involved in this stuff. People say to me, why do you care so much? I care. It's that simple. And then another request was they want history corrected. They want to know what things used to be like and what changed and what happened. So, and then if I get time, we'll talk about a great essay on birthright citizenship. So I want to talk about beginning with philosophy. You can't really trust anybody. You can't trust anybody. I heard a modern philosopher talk about this moral equivalency that is taught in the universities of destruction. And, he gave an example. If somebody says, you don't like abortion, don't have one. I saw a bumper sticker myself, my own two eyes, said, don't like abortion, get a vasectomy. I mean, if you can't get your mind around how stupid that is, and they think it's their killer mic drop. But, what's wrong with abortion is not that I don't like it. That's not it. That's called a preference claim in philosophy. That means that, you like vanilla and I like chocolate. But that's not where abortion falls in. Life and death, societal life and death. You don't like it, don't have one. I mean, that doesn't even. It's like they demonstrated during COVID. Oh no, if you're not wearing a mask, I'll get it. Even though I am. And the vax and everything else they applied to. This is just what populist psychology calls stinking thinking. It's deadly. It's stupid. It's so ignorant. He said that it's a preference claim. You don't. It's not a preference claim. It's a values claim. You like vanilla. I like chocolate. So what? You like abortion. I don't. So what? It's not the same category. You don't allow Nazis to take over your country. And just don't forget our perfect reverse barometer. If they call you a Nazi, they're a Nazi. So You know, the ACLU, the ACL Jew fought for Nazis. They fought for Nazis to be able to have parades and things. Well, if you extrapolate that to its logical conclusion, if the Nazi Party took over the majority, they didn't even need the majority with Hitler. He was elected. Would you change the Constitution to be more Islamist, to be more Nazi, to be more communist, Marxist? I don't understand. How? Why? What would you do that for? So it's this misguided thinking about things that gets us into the trouble that we're in. You know, why do we have any sympathy for Muslims? In Michigan, they're chanting "Death to America." In Congress, Ilhan Omar. You know, I saw her. I saw her on a program. She's on a podcast. She's being interviewed. It's a very sympathetic media, and she's talking about. I guess her net worth went from 30 million to either she says 100,000 or 18,000, and so they're asking her WTF. Remember WTF? Let's think about that. Remember, we talked about that. It means window, table, floor. So when you see an issue like this one, you say, some people will say, well, it's the window. Some people say it's the table. In reality, it's the floor. And here goes in Ilhan Omar's case. The enemy domestic. And I guess we somehow have to have her here. So she says, and this was her answer. The podcaster said, well, so you reported your net worth was 30 million 15 minutes ago, and now it's anywhere from 100,000 to 18. And she says, I don't know. All of a sudden, she's a little girl. This witch that was screaming at the president during the State of the Union after not being a guest, like Schwarzenegger said, and coming here and appreciating this country, appreciating all the things that we've done for Somalia since Black Hawk Down. I mean, this isn't funny. It's not cute. Women. Do you know what they want to do to you if they take over? Have you thought about that at all? Suicidal sympathy, Gad Saad calls it. You're slitting your own throat. Like Margaret Thatcher said, don't come to me for a Band-Aid if you're going to cut your own throat. So Ilhan Omar, I don't know anything about bookkeeping or check balancing. I don't know. It was her husband's wealth. Well, guess what? Most of the wealth is, she admits, it's from a vineyard. He makes wine. He makes alcohol, which all of our troops aren't allowed to carry into Saudi Arabia and aren't allowed to get in Bahrain or whatever. I don't know. I don't know all the names perfectly, but generally, isn't Islam kind of against alcohol? The Somali taxi drivers, I first heard this on Dennis Prager, Somali taxi driver who won't let anybody in his car in Minnesota if they have alcohol or have it on their breath, or if they have a dog, which is not cool for Islam. Dogs, they don't like dogs, especially black dogs, and pornography. You know, if they had any of those things, he wouldn't let them in his cab. It's not his cab. He can drive a cab in Mogadishu, but not Mogadishu, Minnesota. That's not the way we are supposed to be. But anyway, he's making his money in alcohol. Does anything matter at all? Ilhan Omar would have been executed over there for some of her things she's done and said. But, you know, somebody sits over here and, you know, these matriarchy people that we have here that are running everything, and they say, well, you can't do anything about them. You can't say any. That's their religion. Well, no, it isn't. That's what I'm trying to tell you. It isn't their religion. It's a scam. Muhammad Ali was part of the Nation of Islam. If you want to look online, watch his interview in the 60s when he was getting in trouble for evading the draft and everything through religious objection. Nation of Islam is a cult. It's not even recognized by by Islam in general, universal. It's a kooky cult that started in America, just like most of our cults, kooky cults. They started here under the name of religious freedom, and then they become tyrannies. First, we abhor, then we tolerate, then we embrace. And then step 4, we've had to add, we are compelled to celebrate, whether we believe in it or not. You should hear Muhammad Ali. Watch those videos. He's talking to William F. Buckley on a show called Firing Line. And Buckley's challenging him very bravely, but he's talking about how horrible the white man is. And he became this darling to everybody. What? Really? Dave Chappelle, is he really Muslim? The way he talks and acts and drinks and smokes and the things he said about how wonderful it was to vote for Hillary. He said something so vulgar I can't even repeat it, but I think he said it on Saturday Night Live, so you can find it. And he used the word pussy just the same as Trump did, that got him into trouble with all these people, all of these defenders of the public morale, like Michelle Obama, who goes, "Oh, God, my 2 daughters," telling Oprah or The View or something. "I don't know what to tell my daughters about that when the president talks like that." "Oh, yeah? 15 minutes ago, your daughter, you said that Beyonce was a role model. Celluloid hoe. Come on." So these people that want to defend something that's indefensible, it's crazy. And so all right, so the retired, veteran and retired professional, he asked me a question about this bill, McCarran Act in 1952 that supposedly, fact check, was supposedly banned Muslims. But what it really did was it banned people from countries, from areas that were bringing bad stuff here. Really bad stuff, like socialism, anarchy, communism. And the reason that, and a religious oath for people that hold high office. Well, the reason they didn't want that is because they didn't want people that don't have American values, the values of America. Remember, repeat after me. "And to the republic for which it stands, the American Trinity, liberty, and God we trust, e pluribus unum." You don't have people that bring things that are counter the dark Trinity. You don't bring stuff like that here and expect it to go well. You guys you've lost it. You've lost the thread. So it turns out, so here's the point about that. I looked up in AI to see, because he asked me whether that was true or not, this act in 1952 that it was supposedly banned Muslims, but then they overturned it or something. Well, it banned people coming here with ideas that are antithetical to America. But then they say, "Oh, well, it's always with these people. It's always an inanimate object, skin color. It's cars. It's not drunk drivers. It's guns. It's not values. It's not murderous hearts that'll kill you with a knife or a car if they can, or fertilizer like Timothy McVeigh used. Doesn't have to be a gun." So but they always, it's condoms. It's not values that cause, unwed pregnancies and things. No, completely opposite. Remember the verse, it's values. It's not any of those inanimate things. So they say, well, it was WASPs. It was WASPs. A WASP was an acronym for White Anglo-Saxon Protestant. And all the way up to the 1920s, they didn't allow Catholics and Jews to be. Well, it wasn't because they were white. It wasn't because of their skin color. Let's get rid of that. They were both white. Both the Jews and the WASPs were white. The Catholics and the WASPs were white. It wasn't that. They weren't discriminating admission to Harvard in this case because of that, because of their skin color or their gender. They didn't want people that don't have the values to be that they were suspicious of their values. The founding fathers that started Harvard and along with this country, they had a big problem with Catholics. So they didn't want you to have to take an oath, a religious oath, to be any particular denomination of Protestant, but they didn't want somebody who was really not interested in this country as much as they were interested in a pope somewhere, who's basically a king, or Jews who would be, at the time, all the Jews, most of the Jews that were coming were anarchists or communists. Jews have been the leaders of every horrible ism that's tormented man: communism, environmentalism, feminism. Treating the law like some kind of a joke or a game instead of justice. And so that's why they didn't want it. But then no, it's just because of their religion, their gender, their this, their that. They didn't want women being involved. Women couldn't go to Harvard till 1975. Oh, that's because they were misogynist. No, it's because they feared what happened. What happened? Now they let in Pocahontas, lying. What do they call that when you cultural appropriation? Says she's an Indian, and they go bragging that they got an Indian, and now they're discriminating against Asians because they don't have enough blacks. Blah 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 blah. It's making bad decisions based on something that, and so AI will always do this. When you look for AI, be careful of AI. When you look at it, it says, oh, well, they did it because they were WASPs. They were white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, and that's why. That's why. No, that's not why. That's the window. The table is a little bit more facts about it, and that, no, that's not true. They weren't discriminating because of that. But the floor is really the issue. WTF? Both sides arguing. It's this, it's that. No, it isn't. It's something else you guys aren't even looking at. You're not even considering. So why do they do that? I've tried to explain that, it's like being on jury duty. It's like being on jury duty. You have to, when you're on jury duty, the judge gives you instructions. He says, I know you weren't there, but you're the judge today. You got to use everything. You're everything you've learned, and you're living as on earth, and your maturity, the life lessons, everything. You got to make a decision. Yes, you have to make a decision. So I'm talking to this awful, and I think we're talking about Southern Poverty Law Center that called Charlie Kirk a hate group, and Focus on the Family, if you know anything about them, and PragerU. Anybody that, and you find out they just gave $1 million. The DOJ finally released it, that they gave $1 million to the KKK, the Southern Poverty, those ones who are talking about hate groups, so that they could fake things like the Fine People hoax. It was all fake. Just look at it. J6 was fake, everything. But the Southern Poverty Law Center, so she, I'm talking to her about this, and she's like Kat Timpf on Gutfeld. They can't figure it out. They can't make a decision. They don't know if it's going to be. They don't know if it's going to be. Do I have to be disloyal to my tribe or my gender, which changes every 3 days, according to the left? They don't even know. I said, you got to make a decision. You have to. Yes, that's what it's about. When you vote, you're voting against evil. You're not voting for somebody that you don't care. You don't throw away your vote by voting independent or libertarian. I'll show them. You're not showing anybody. You're not accomplishing anything. You have to vote for a while. We have to vote against until we can get these rhinos trained to do their job. But you're going to have to make a decision. You're not going to ever get all the evidence. You're never going to get all the evidence. And then when you do, you can't go, well, that's your side of it. J6, false flag, kangaroo court, Soviet show trial. I mean, it doesn't take much to figure that out. Well, there were bad people on the other side. Are you trying to say there were fine people on both sides? No, there were bad people on the other side. I know there were. I know that. How do you know? How do you know? You cannot know how many of those people there were plants. And Schmuck Fumer didn't want the videos released, and Nancy Pelosi didn't want the security cameras released, so they release them. And it finally even wakes up Joe Rogan because they see the Capitol Police opening doors for them and giving them a tour. I called it on the first day. I saw it as it was happening on TV. I said, that looks like Mr. Smith goes to Washington. All they were doing was what Trump said, peacefully. Oh, no, there were some that weren't. Okay. How many of them were either motivated by plants, like we just found out with the Southern Poverty Law Center, or how many of them were acting? This stuff has all come out. It's all been proven. And, well, yeah, but why do you have to hang on to something that you can't possibly know? Scott Adams did a great job of this. He said, look, like with election integrity, he's a software expert. He said, there's a million ways to cheat. And look what they did. Look at the voter ID and all this stuff. He suggested a reward of $1 million to somebody who worked in the election system and would say, yeah, they told me to do this and they told me to do that. He goes, but at the end of the day, you cannot possibly know what happened. You cannot know what happened there. So you have to be like a jury member. You got to make up your mind. And he says, you're either retarded, forgive me, insane, or a liar. You can't know what happened, but you got to decide. That's all for now. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Appreciate you so much. In love.